lobby. Do we have anyone?
There is nobody in the lobby and there's nobody on the line at this time. Clarissa will confirm for us if there's been any written public comment. Clarissa?
We have not received any written public comment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no public comment, we'll move on to our first action item, which is to elect the committee chair and vice chair. So I'm the current vice chair, but I would like to nominate Vince Cox as chair.
I would like to second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and vice chair. Are there any?
So, I'm interested in being the vice chair. If nominate someone would like to nominate me,
You can self-nominate.
I'll be self-nominated then.
I second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second for Richard Bennett to be vice chair. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you so much.
Here we go.
Do you want to take over from here?
I can.
I can continue to run things if you'd like, or it's an imaginary gavel if you'd like it.
You go ahead.
Okay, so I'll continue. So the next item is to approve the November 18th minutes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And on to the Gillig electric bus contract, Henry and Al. I don't know who's up first. Don't fight over it.
No, I was on mute no longer.
Good morning, Henry.
Good morning, board members. So, first action item we have before you today is yet another recommendation to purchase 2 all-electric buses, and that was because PSTA was once again successful in obtaining another federal grant for the purchase of such vehicles. So this one's a little different. The previous 2 were low-no awards, low emission, no emission. This one is a complement to that program known as the FTA Bus and Bus Facilities Discretionary Grant Program. It was a competitive application, and this time around we were awarded an amount of $1,239,710. So Bus and Bus Facilities, again, this is our basis of application was vehicles or facilities with technological changes or innovations to modify low or no emission vehicles or facilities. So our application was for 2 40-foot all-electric low-floor buses and the required charging equipment. With this purchase, combined with the recent delivery of the 4 new previously ordered buses, our PSTA electric bus fleet will increase to 8 total buses. As those know, when we purchase buses at PSTA, all of them are purchased what we call turnkey, meaning all the onboard devices, technological enhancements, radio systems will all be included with the purchase of the bus. This time around, we've looked at different manufacturers, seeing what they have to offer, and we will be choosing the Gillig bus, 40-foot. For those that are new to our committee and our board, PSTA's heavy-duty transit fleet is predominantly 95% Gillig bus. So integration of these 2 electric buses should not be an undue effort into the existing fleet. At this time, I will turn it over to Mr. Burns to talk about the procurement side.
Thank you, Henry. Good morning, Mr. Chair. Al Burns, your highly motivated procurement director for PSTA. At PSTA in the procurement department, we're always looking for innovative ways to procure items. This time, for this purchase, we elected to use the State of Virginia Division of Purchasing and Supply Contracts for Transit Vehicles. FTA allows for us to use different state contracts to procure items such as transit vehicles. However, it is our responsibility to make sure that that procurement was conducted and complies with all the FTA requirements, and I have reviewed that, and it does. Even though, like Henry said, we are predominantly a Gillig fleet, we still did a responsibility check on Gillig, meaning EPLS, Better Business Bureau, et cetera, to make sure that they're in good standing. It was determined that they have the capacity to perform the work and are there, and therefore eligible to be awarded this contract by the Board of Directors. For the fiscal impact, I'll turn that back over to Henry. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. So fiscal impact, as I mentioned before, $1,239,710 will be coming from the Bus and Bus Facilities Grant. If you look at your packets, you can see the breakdown of costs under the fiscal impact. So the part of this will wrap up with the recommendation. So the first part of the recommendation is to recommend approval of a contract with Gillig for the purchase of 2 40-foot all-electric buses plus 2 depot chargers in a total contract amount not to exceed $2,286,000. The second piece will be part of this project, which is to install the 2 new depot chargers coming. And as is customary with federal grants and grant programs, there's the usual project administration, such as pre- and post-delivery award audits and testing and commissioning of $10,000. So the total not to exceed project cost will be $2,400,000. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Are there any questions?
I have no question.
None? Richard, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna make a motion, that's all.
Okay, I actually do have one question. It's really just to help one of our new board members. Can you share what what a ballpark cost for a diesel bus would be?
Yes. So PSTA's fully outfitted diesel bus price is approximately $650,000. And that gets back to the turnkey. When we purchase our buses, they come with everything on them, so all said and done, about $650,000.
So in a ballpark way, we're getting 2 electric buses for our cost of 2 diesel buses because of the grant?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, just wanted to make sure that all of us are hearing some of that new information.
Thank you, Chair. Can I have a follow-up question?
Sure.
If you don't mind?
Yes,
Just
Mr.
to confirm, are these replacement buses or are these additional buses to the fleet?
Henry, did you hear the question?
Yes, these will be replacement buses.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to the chair's question, I mean, so far, PSA now has 6 electric, all-electric battery-powered buses, and these will add 2 more to make 8. And so far, all 8 of them have been, like you said, basically the amount of money that we have put in from our local capital dollars is the equivalent of buying diesel buses, and then the federal government, we've been successful at getting grants, like this grant, to upgrade them to be all electric. And that's been the way we've done it for the first, all 8 of these so far.
Mr. Cox, you don't,
I don't
just,
have to hit it?
nope,
Okey-doke.
but now push it again.
Am I good?
There you
Paid
go.
attention.
All right, Henry, just one quick question on was that a pure diesel or was that a hybrid diesel price? The
Pure
question
diesel.
that Josh asked.
The pure diesel.
Pure diesel, okay. How about a hybrid? What do they go for?
Last cost was $750,000.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
All right. Nope, just push it again. Push it. Okay, hands off your buttons, people. We're just gonna leave them all on. And did we have a motion yet?
So I'll move that we approve the purchase of 2 electric buses from Gillick Electric Bus at a cost not to exceed $2,400,000.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion with the caveat also that we'll have the 2 depot charging stations included in this price, too, the buses and the depot charging stations.
Okay. Any additional comment? No?
I would note that kind of like an iPhone and Android course, the Gilligs need their own special chargers because the BYD chargers don't fit.
But they can still be used to drive,
Yes.
Yeah.
They still can, they can still use the induction charger, is that right, Henry?
That's correct.
thank you.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? All right. And we'll put that on the board agenda
Yeah.
so they can see the full funding there. Next item would be the depot charging stations contract
Yeah,
for
it's
both
related.
Henry and Al, which is related to this prior item.
All right, thank you. So you heard me mention just a few moments ago that we have just taken delivery of 4 35-foot BYD buses, and this is something that the board approved about about 14 months ago. So they're here. We're checking them in. We're going through them. And part of that project is we now need to install 4 more depot chargers. So when I say depot, these are the chargers that are here at our maintenance facility, and primarily how the buses recharge after they come back from a day in service. Real quickly on this, you can see the action item is to approve a contract with A&K Energy Conservation for a total not to exceed $195,000, which does include a 15% contingency. I just want to take one moment and thank once again Duke Energy for stepping up and really supporting PSTA's electric bus program. Duke Energy has had a program called the Park and Plug program, and for those that have been on the board for a little bit, you've heard this before. When we installed the first 2 depot chargers back in 2018, Duke helped us out by paying for both the purchase of the 2 depot chargers plus the cost to install them. This time around, Duke Energy has agreed to reimburse PSTA up to $160,000. So $40,000 for each depot charger. That includes both the purchase and the installation. So 40,000 times the 4 gives us the 160,000. And we really want to thank them for that. They've been very supportive of our electric bus program. And ultimately what that does for PSTA is it just requires less funding from PSTA to pay for this particular project. So I'll come back to that in case there's any questions in a moment, but I'll turn it back over to Al to talk about the solicitation for our contract.
Thank you, Henry. In early December, we released an invitation for bid, or an IFB. We published it on PSTA's website and on DemandStar. In January, we received 1 responsive bid, and that was from A&K Energy Conservation Incorporated. The bid amount that they bid is in the table inside your board packet. As this project is federally funded, it had a DBE goal of 17.05%, and A&K Energy Conservation was committed to a 3.5% DBE participation, and they are steadily working towards achieving that goal. I want to highlight a couple things about A&K Energy, if that's okay. A&K Energy is a Florida-owned business and is also a veteran-owned business. Henry mentioned Duke Energy several times this morning already, and A&K Energy works closely with Duke Energy, and they even installed the personal electric vehicle charging stations on our facility. The bid amount was presented to Henry and the engineer of record, AECOM, and the price that they submitted was determined to be fair and reasonable. As we do with all procurements, we did a responsibility check, which included the EPLS, business credit report, and everything came out good. Additionally, they are a certified Florida contractor. The fiscal impact, this will be funded partially by federal funds, and as Henry stated, Duke Energy has agreed to reimburse PSTA up to $160,000 for the construction and installation of the chargers under the Florida Park and Plug program. PSTA will provide the remaining funding to cover this project, which is approximately $35,000. Mr. Chair, the recommendation again is recommend approval of a contract with A&K Energy Conservation Incorporated for the construction and installation of electric charging stations for a total contract amount not to exceed $195,000, which includes a 15% contingency. If there is any questions, Henry or I will be more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you
I will-
both. Any questions?
I have a question.
Commissioner Cox?
Okay, and the bid amount was $169,144, and the contingency brings that to $195. So is there a good chance we can keep it close to $169?
Yes, I was just going to mention that, Commissioner Cox. PSTA's had a great track record both with this company, the contractor, and staying within the original estimated cost for the project. So being said, we're confident that it will stay within that 170-ish. So with that, and if we take out the 160 Duke is going to reimburse us, then we're looking at a PSTA cost of only $9,100,
You know, that's-
$9,144.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question for Henry or Al. As far as maintenance on these electric buses, how does it compare to the diesel buses? Is it more maintenance or less?
Well, at this point, there is less in the sense that there is no combustion engine. So there's a reduction of fluids, fuels, obviously, moving parts. I think that's from the propulsion side where you're capturing most of the savings. Fewer moving parts means less maintenance. There's still maintenance on the bus involved. You still got brakes and suspension, electronics, but certainly the savings from fuel and the savings from having to maintain a combustion engine and a traditional transmission that is full of moving parts has seen a savings.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both. I have a couple of questions. Al, I know you're heading up our DBE efforts, and you said that they've committed to a 3.5% DBE participation and are working towards a higher number. Can you share what are they, have they set a goal for this project, or are we just hoping that they move forward? What are they looking to do?
Thank you, Commissioner Schulman. As regard to the goal is set by, the DBE goal is established by PSTA, and it is incumbent on the contractors to achieve that goal. So A&K Energy, I've been in conversation with them about their DBE efforts, and what allows me to do that is, even though this was a bid, I'm allowed to have discussions because we only received one bid. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that, because under normal circumstances, you're not allowed to enter in discussions or negotiations. So what our DBE coordinator, Ms. Maggie Soto, what I've tasked her to do is find experienced, qualified DBEs that can assist A&K Energy in increasing their DBE effort on this project. So I've reached out personally to about 3 construction contractors, concrete, boring, and those are the areas that A&K is looking to subcontract. So we're doing good as far as the DBE effort goes overall at PST. I would say we're even exceeding our DBE efforts, but in this one, it's just it's a little tough, area of space, meaning that it's a niche market installing these electrical chargers. And therefore, that explains why we only received one bid also. A&K Energy, they installed the inductive charger. We received 2 bids for this. I called other contractors. They said, hey, Al, these guys have this down to a science. So we didn't even waste our time coming out there and estimating on this project. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Al. And Henry, I had a question about the depot chargers themselves. So these are going to be set up for the BYD buses, because we just heard on the prior item that, we're ordering 2 Gillig chargers. One, is that true? And 2, are there adapters that we can look at that these can be universally used?
Yes, so you are correct. The BYD chargers at this point will only work on BYD chargers, and the Gillig buses will require their own type of charger. Also, the inductive chargers will work on both buses, Gillig and BYD. There is a movement in the industry, the electric bus industry, to come up with a compatibility standard for plug-in chargers for all electric buses. There is a SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, standard that has been adopted for high voltage vehicles along what we call a J protocol. So an adapter that's a good term at this point, where a one size fits all, similar to your automobile, where you can go to any fueling station and the nozzle fits in your vehicle. They are working on it. It's something that the industry is trying to move as quick as it can, and to adopt that, to open up more flexibility with choosing electric bus manufacturers. I would probably say within the next 5 years, that'll probably become somewhat more of a reality. And I know of several transit authorities, LA Metro, I believe other authorities out in California that have already achieved a universal charging protocol, as they are running four different types of electric bus manufacturers in their fleets out there. So that was a long yes.
I always appreciate the longer yes than the shorter yes from you, Henry. I learn something every time. So with that, if there's no further questions, I would invite a motion.
I'll move that we approve the depot charging stations at a cost not to exceed $195,000.
Thank you for that. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner Saraki. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously, and I would imagine the consent agenda would be a good place for that. And
May I ask Henry one quick question?
you may.
Thank you. Henry, a quick question to you. Have we received the trolleys, any of the trolleys yet, the new trolleys that we approved?
Yes, Commissioner, we've received 5 out of the 20.
Okay. And no go in service when?
Right now, we're looking at probably May or June.
Okay.
The pandemic has slowed down the manufacturing process a little bit, so we should receive the remainder in February. And we will have to retire a small number of the existing trolleys in order to put in the new trolleys.
Okay, thank you.
One of the delayed critical path items, I understand, is the safety shields.
Oh, okay.
Those are on back order. The guys are coming in all the time right now to outfit these new buses that have arrived over the holidays with all of the myriad of extra stuff, needed to get it going. So thanks to Henry for doing that.
All right, so we'll move on to the landscaping contract, and the hit duo of Henry and Al, you have the floor.
Okay, this action item is probably a less exciting than the electric bus and charging stations. So So PSTA has outsourced landscaping services for the better half of 10 years. And we do have landscaping needs at our main campus, the Grand Central Terminal, the Elmerton Park and Ride, and the Park Street. So with that, I'll turn it over to Al on our solicitation for that.
Mr. Chair, unlike my colleague, I think landscaping is extremely exciting, and we really thoroughly enjoyed going through the solicitation process. We chose to do an RFP, request for a proposal, and it was in compliance with our procurement policies. Once again, we posted it on our website and on DemandStar. We did receive 2 proposals. However, Duval Landscaping was considered to be non-responsive because they did not turn in some critical documents, namely the pricing schedule. Even though we had only received one proposal, we still evaluated that proposal to make sure it met all of Henry's requirements and that they were a good contractor. Then we met on December 16th, and then we entered into negotiations between the 16th and the 21st. I would like to commend my staff, namely Ms. Sharon Spellman, for her due diligence in this. Initially, the contractor came in with a price of $274,000, and after negotiations, they submitted their best and final offer, which was $210,000, which we bring before you today. A responsibility check was done on this firm, like we do on every company, and it was determined that they have the capacity to perform the work and are therefore eligible for award. The fiscal impact on this is that it's funded with operating funds, and Commissioner Schulman, you'll be glad to see that we even have the general ledger number there for reference. Finally, the recommendation is recommend approval of a 2-year contract with 3 one-year options for landscaping services with Primescape Services for a total amount not to exceed $210,000, and authorize the CEO to exercise the 3 one-year options. If there are any questions, Henry and I will be more than happy to answer them.
Okay, I will start off by saying, Al, I'm pleased that you're always able to find joy in any procurement process. And I did notice the general ledger notation there. Are there any questions? Commissioner Bennett?
Yes, Al, can you tell me what the 3-year, 1-year options cost? Is that included in the 210, or is that an additional amount of money?
For the first 2 years, the cost of the is $39,000, approximately $40,000 every year for the cost of this contract. The base is 2 years, and then there's 3 one-year options. So the first 2 years were locked in, and then afterwards, if Henry wants to go out, the contractor isn't performing to his standards, et cetera, we have the ability to go out again.
But the 210 includes
Covers the 5
the
years.
option.
So we could possibly get 5 years for 210s.
Yes, sir, exactly.
Commissioner Cox?
And what are we paying now for the landscaping service?
Currently now, the budget is $40,000 annually for these services. So basically, at the end of the day, we did not receive any increase in what we're paying now.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Saraki?
Is this a new landscaping company, or is it the previous one we're using right now?
It's a new good morning, Commissioner Saraki. I'm sure you're highly motivated this morning as usual. This is a new landscaping company that we're engaging with. However, we did do reference checks on this company. They do business at the TIA, the Tampa International Airport. They have several municipal contracts here in Pinellas County and several municipal contracts in Hillsborough County. So they have been thoroughly vetted, sir.
Perfect, thank you.
Located 7 minutes away, right over here on Almerton, I see. They're a local company. Clearwater.
He can't hear you. They're a local company is what Brad is sharing. Okay, so the only other comment I have, and I appreciate the general ledger number, and I was joking about that, but because I know in the past I've asked to see where the funds are actually coming from. Just a suggestion from a text standpoint would be showing that they're coming from currently budgeted operating funds, just so we know that they're in the current budget and it's fully accounted for, or if it's in addition to the current budget and some sort of change would be helpful, since I don't spend time looking at the general ledger as closely as some other folks. So with that, I would invite a motion.
So I'll move that we approve the landscaping contract for, not to exceed $210,000 for the 2-year contract, and give the CEO the option to extend 3 1-year contracts.
I second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Good
right,
job, Al.
that passes unanimously for the consent agenda. And we're on to reports. Julie, I don't see a Julie box.
Or Debbie?
Oh, I'm going to play the part of Julie Lupus this morning. She is held up at an appointment this morning. But it also gives me an opportunity, before I go into the monthly statements, to say maybe a few words about the CARES supplemental money that PSTA is going to be receiving. As you know, there's the CARES Act that FTA had for our urbanized area called the UZA. And our first CARES Act was $40.4 million roughly. And we've already spent down about $11.5 million of that. They've just come out with a CARES supplemental, which is called CARISA, is sort of how you say it. And the urbanized area will be getting $30.8 million, approximately evenly divided between HART and PSTA. They've come out with some new rules as it relates to this legislation. And what they're doing is taking a look at the 2018 National Transit Database data for each of the transit agencies and taking 75% of the operating costs at that point in time, and then applying it to both what we got in the first round of CARES Act plus the second. And it cannot exceed 75% with the two together. So we have 4 transit agencies in our UZA: HART, PSTA, PASCO, and TBARTA. PASCO on the first go-around already received 134% of their 2018 expenses, and TBARTA already received 227%. So neither of those 2 agencies are eligible for the second supplemental. As a result, the $30.8 million that we'll be getting will be split between HART and PSTA. PSTA will be receiving $15 million and HART $15.7 million. The split, what we called a split letter that goes out to each of the agencies, went out yesterday. Each agency has to sign agreeing to this. There really isn't a whole lot of interpretation related to this, as we're following the intent of the legislation as we have discussed with FTA. So it's very good news for the region to be getting more money, and we're very, very appreciative of that. Are there any questions on that before I go to the financial statements?
Yeah, Debbie, actually, I just had one clarification question. You said on the original CARES Act, there was $40.4 million?
Yes.
Was that the amount that was fully allocated to PSTA or to the region?
That is the amount that was to PSTA, and I think it was closer to about 91 million for the UZA, for the urbanized area.
And you said we've drawn down about 11 million of that.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And are those funds are locked in as ours, or can they be clawed back at all?
They are locked in as ours. The legislation does not have any sunset to it, so there is no end date by which we have to spend it. They're asking that we spend it expeditiously, and we're planning to spend it finish spending it over the next 2 years, maybe even sooner with this additional CARES Act money.
And those are just for operating costs, correct?
The first CARES Act actually allowed for capital, but we are using it for only operations. which is its original intent, is to make sure we keep people employed, keep the operations running. So we're using it for mainly our people, for fuel, and for paratransit supplies as it relates to COVID. And those are basically the main areas, and also some computer supplies to be able to have people work remotely. So that piece is pretty much done.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, Commissioner Cox?
I have a question. Debbie, when do we intend to restore fares? We have a,
That's an excellent question, Commissioner. We're continuing to look at that on an internal basis to see when the numbers keep coming down and when we feel it is safe to do so. So we're taking a look at that. It does have implications. We've anticipated in this year's budget about fares would be restored somewhere around April, or around a 50% reduction in fares this year. But we're continually looking at it. Safety first.
sure, and I have a follow-up too. When will we be instituting the new fare boxes on the buses as well?
You talking about the Flamingo fares, Commissioner?
I am, yeah, yes.
Okay, I know HART is looking to go live with that either, well, soon this month, or is sometime mid-February. And we're hoping to go live with that when we start issuing fares,
Okay,
or collecting fares.
thank you.
My thought all along had been, we suspended the fares due to the pandemic and to try to keep people safe by going in the back door.
Right.
And then my thought had been that Flamingo would be up and running so that then when we restored fares,
Right.
you could just use your phone, you could not have to touch anything.
Right.
And there's been a lot of slippage by our friends over at Hart on Flamingo. It seems like we're not exactly sure. I thought they were gonna start in December, but it seems to have slipped a little bit. So as Debbie just said, we're thinking by like April, Flamingo should be up and running, and maybe that's a safe time that we can target for putting people coming in the front door.
Does PCPTA Pasco participate in this, in the Flamingo?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got, I'm trying to think, it's Sarasota is in it, Hart, us, Manatee is not,
Right,
Pasco is in.
okay. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, Debbie, can you walk us through the financial reports?
Certainly, I would suggest that you go to the month of November tab in your Granicus. And when you take a look at this, for just the month of November, we had a net surplus of 5.5 million, but it was $7.2 million under budget. That is purely related to property tax revenue and the timing of when it's collected. And when I looked at December, which I have early December numbers, we are $14.9 million over budget for the month of December. So this is kind of giving me pause. Every year for the first couple of months when we talk about property tax, there are these wild swings in it, just depending on when they send out the checks. So I'm going to give some really good thought to say, is there another way for us to account for it on an accrual basis where we just accrue for it and true it up at the end? Because it really distorts the way things look on a month-to-month basis when you're seeing these kinds of collection changes from the county when they send out the money. But other than that, we're doing extremely well. On the expense side, we are under budget in salaries, services, and some of that relates to what we pay to the county for collection of taxes. Fuel is remaining under budget. Supplies, as you would expect, is over budget as it relates to COVID, and we are getting reimbursement from that, from the CARES Act for that. Everything else is pretty much under budget all across the way, with some few minor exceptions in there. When we look on a year-to-date basis, which is the next page in there, again, you can still see the wild swings from the property tax that are in there, but you can also see a consistency on the expense side as it relates to being under budget in most areas, with the exception of supplies and a small piece for insurance, which was just, basically due to timing on getting reimbursements on third parties from incidents. So we're doing extremely well. When I look at December, again, I don't have the December numbers final for you, but it's looking extremely good in December with about a $1.9 million surplus at that point in time, kind of getting rid of some of these wild gyrations. Are there any questions on the financials?
Debbie, it looks like you've done a bang-up job and there's no questions.
All right.
So
Good
thank you
job,
for
Deb.
that.
Good job.
And thank you to all the PSTA that are keeping our expenses low. But Debbie, PSTA contracts, another fun page.
Yes, I know this is your favorite report, Commissioner Schulman.
It is.
And for those who are new to the board, I present to the board every quarter a contract report that is prepared by actually Sharon Spellman, who's the purchasing manager, works for Al. And what we do is we take a look at all the contracts, we have contract values, and then we do it by an average spend. Because sometimes these contracts look big, but when you spread it over a number of years, it's not quite so bad. But our largest contracts, of course, right now is with our Sunrunner BRT project, our health insurance, and then Care Ride is our paratransit provider. And we are going out and we're in the process of a solicitation for a new provider for that. And that's followed by Jolly Trolley and Fuel. So those are our biggest contracts that we have that are sort of on a recurring basis. Then we get into things like the bus buys, et cetera, after that. But this is a report you can take a look at your leisure. If you have any questions on specific contracts, I am very happy to answer it, or Al Burns can step in on that.
Any questions?
No.
Nope. I love the new report, so thank you for,
This is
the
good.
average spend is truly helpful, in seeing how we're spending money on an annual basis. Brad, what do you have for ridership?
And I'll just note, next month, we might be, we're scheduled to bring the new paratransit contract to the PSA board. And I think it will move from number 4 to number 1, in average spend. All of the bids that we got, are just reflecting on what a great deal we had with Parat for a very long time. But Al and Debbie and everybody is working really hard on that, bringing that cost down. As far as ridership goes, December ridership was surprisingly good for December. I am not really sure why yet, but we're now down just 22% on our bus service. And both Looper and Jolly Trolley had fantastic, had really high ridership over the New Year's weekend. And I'm not sure if that was, their ridership it's interesting. PSTA ridership is during the week on our regular bus service, and then Looper and Jolly Trolley, of course, are tourists, theirs is on the weekends. And I guess New Year's was a big tourist time in Pinellas, in both downtown St. Pete and Clearwater, so we saw that. The other thing I would just note is our mobility programs continue to be very incredibly strong. Those are all of our programs with Uber and Lyft and Taxi, but that brings together our first mile, last mile program, our TD late shift, which is late night service that's open for low income folks. But really now it is totally eclipsed by the service for our paratransit customers, that we're switching people from traditional, just one size fits all paratransit to a mix of services, taxis, Lyft rides, other wheelchair accessible providers, or even Direct Connect or riding the bus. I heard from our customer service rep that for the first time in December, we actually had more phone calls to our call center for requesting rides on Lyft and taxi than we did to ask where the bus is, regular bus questions. And so that's maybe a sign of things to come as we kind of move into that mobility space. I think that's fantastic, and that is going to be part of our solution to making sure we have a financially sustainable paratransit system, given the bids and where they're at too, so.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Brad?
Yeah, I do.
Commissioner Cox?
Thank you, Brad. And what we're moving to is to have all of our mobility under one umbrella, and that would reflect why this, would it not?
Yes.
Why the big increase in the budget on paratransit?
No, I think that's right. It's interesting, we received these proposals. For those of you who might remember, our longtime contractor, CareRide, is owned by Baycare Health Systems here in Pinellas County. And they've been a great contractor, but Baycare has decided to get out of the transportation business and put CareRide up for sale. And so they have given us a July 1 deadline to end our contract with them. And so we've conducted the solicitation a year ahead of when their contract was supposed to end, because Baycare is getting out of it. And so we've received bid proposals, and like I said, all of the proposals are excellent proposals. We received 4, 5 really, and we're in the evaluation process right now of those, but they all are substantially more proposing higher costs than CareRide, our CareRide contract allowed. In addition, they are all proposing subcontractors to contract out with taxi cab companies or like Lyft or TNC like subcontractors for cars. CareRide bought a whole bunch of cars. They had their own fleet of Priuses, but none of these companies are proposing to do it like that. They're proposing to subcontract out to either like Uber or something that just uses people's own cars, or like taxi kind of companies. And so that is making it even more challenging to evaluate what's the best option for our customers and PSDA. So it's getting complicated, but Al's created what he calls a finance task force within, because you guys are the finance committee, so we couldn't call it that. It's a finance task force that is going to get together later today, and we're going to have more healthy discussions to figure out these proposals before we come back to you next month, the finance committee, for that contract.
May I ask a question? Please. So if we, before CareRide had their own vehicles, they were all approved by PSTA per the federal contract. And therefore, if we use the company, whatever we use, would have to go through those same procedures. Is that not correct? Have the vehicles inspected here? Have the drivers have sensitivity training? Have everything that goes along with that?
Well, yes, I mean, we would hold the prime contractor to the state laws that require those kinds of inspections and things like that. Yes, you're right.
Right. And are they not federal as well? Because it's federal money, is it not? Or is it
They're
state?
not federal, they're state
Okay.
right now, and the state is modernizing their rules and regulations that might be in place now, I'm not sure, where those restrictions might be changing
Okay.
from coming down from Tallahassee, so that Uber and Lyft, it's impossible to inspect all those vehicles because the car might be coming from Fort Myers.
Right.
Or something, and So that's what's being looked at in Tallahassee, I know, to allow those to be directly provided for paratransit. The way we are in compliance right now by using Uber and Lyft is it's sort of supplementary to traditional paratransit. And we can do that.
But DART is not one of those programs, am I correct?
So the service that is traditionally called DART, that is our paratransit, that meets all of the state requirements, and all those vehicles are inspected.
Okay.
And then in addition, the way we describe it to customers is, you can always take that if you qualify, but if you would like to take advantage of a real-time trip and you feel comfortable, we'll schedule a Lyft or a taxi ride for you right now.
Okay, so as of now, all of the drivers that are doing our DART program, all are, certified, they're background checked, they're, have DOT physicals, a 2-year physical, and, so that's kind of going away, is it? Am I understanding that?
No, we have all those requirements in the RFP.
Okay.
And just to make sure we understand how the companies are meeting those requirements.
Yeah, 'cause it's-
Even if they have a subcontractor that's not their company, that is actually providing the automobiles.
Right, because it's, in my opinion, my experience, it's very important, safety, I mean, and you know that as well. And, so we'll discuss that later.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Next month, we'll have I'm sure, a robust discussion about it.
Okay, good.
All right, any additional questions? Nope. I just wanted to add, I think that in looking at the operating statistics, it shows to me how important PSTA is to both the transportation disadvantaged as well as the people that we call essential workers. Looking at what's happened with the business community, there's been a greater shrinkage as far as jobs lost and people working from home, but PSTA still has a relatively robust ridership. And that harkens to the fact that it's those folks that are going places and keeping our community going that need PSTA. So it's an important part of our overall piece for our community. The other thing I wanted to do, and I forgot to do it earlier, was welcome 2 of our commissioners to this committee as visitors officially, and then official next month. But Commissioner Sabile and Commissioner Gao, welcome. And hopefully we entertained and enlightened, as is the goal with everything here at PSTA. Is there any other business? Commissioner Saraki.
I have one question, Brad. As Henry had mentioned that the diesel buses are going away. Has that affected our employment as far as maintenance hires? Are they do we still keep, I guess my question is, are we gonna be, you're gonna be getting rid of some employees because there's not much maintenance anymore? The electric buses seem to be operating fine. I mean, I'm just thinking big here, outside the box. I don't know.
I think that's some good thoughts, and I'm sure Debbie is smiling and Henry's maybe frowning. I don't think Henry has submitted a proposal to reduce his staff yet, but it's a really interesting question. I mean, clearly the job of technician that works for Henry has completely changed.
I bet.
And the benefit of PSDA actually over the last 6 or 7 years going big into the hybrid electric buses is it's really gotten us, those guys, a lot of experience working with high electricity, batteries, all the stuff. And so now that we're transitioning to fully electric, it's less of a, it's a little bit less of a transition. We are frequently hiring for new technicians, and almost all of our employees in the maintenance department start off, we get them from the Pinellas Technical College, formerly P-Tech, just down the road. And Henry and Trish actually serve on the advisory committee, because we hire so many of those folks that graduate from there. Advisory committee that Pinellas County Schools has over that program. And so I know they're talking about how diesel, the traditional old school diesel mechanic is no longer hard to employ. and that they're working on changing their curriculum even to more electrical motors and things like that. I mean, Henry, I don't know if you want to add anything else. It is a transition that the whole industry is seeing though.
I bet.
Yeah.
And then the last question I have, and thank you, Mr. Chair. What are we doing with the old buses? Do we sell them? Do we trash them? What do we do with them?
They go to Kosovo, right, Henry? Just kidding.
So,
They might go to
Commissioner, we do a couple of things. One is, by the time our buses are retired, close to 1 million miles, there's really nothing left for them to go on and do in a secondary life. So, they usually go for scrap metal. If they are running, then they would go and be disposed of through public auction.
Great, thank you so much. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right, well, thank you all, and I appreciate you working with me on my chairing my first Finance Committee and my last Finance Committee as chair. And I look forward to passing the gavel to Commissioner Cox next meeting. Next meeting is February 17th, and I'm guessing, barring some new pandemic, it'll be here in this room. All right, thank you so much.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
All right.
Don't touch your lights.
Yeah, I'm okay. I learned my lesson. Now, who's on on planning? I know you and me.
We gotta get home and watch the
Oh.
new,
I think it's
President.
Commissioner Sabile, I believe you're on Planning Committee, right?
Yes.
Yeah.